before history was written, before gods were feared or kings were crowned, there was only the cold and the hunger. 50,000 years ago, Europe was a grave of ice. The sky was ash, the nights endless. And if you were human, you were meat with a heartbeat. This isn't fiction. This isn't fantasy. This is a brutal chapter carved out of the earth itself. Welcome to No Sleep Historian, where the past doesn't just whisper, it hunts. Today, we're not telling you how to live. We're telling you how to survive the Neanderthal era. Part 1. Forget everything you know about being human. You are not in control. You are not special. You are not even you anymore. Identity has no value here. The things that define modern life, language, culture, comfort, technology, they don't exist yet. You are meat, intelligent, perhaps, but still meat. The first casualty of survival isn't your body, it's your mind. Everything you believe about human nature, about civilization, about the basic assumptions that govern daily life must be abandoned at the threshold of this frozen hell. Your smartphone won't save you. Your education won't feed you. Your moral compass won't warm you when the temperature drops to 20 below and the wind cuts through your makeshift shelter like a blade through paper. Survival begins with unlearning. Stop assuming there's shelter nearby. In this world, shelter is something you create with your bare hands from whatever materials you can scavenge, steal, or kill for. Stop assuming food can be gathered. There are no grocery stores, no farms, no reliable food sources beyond what you can hunt, trap, or tear from the frozen ground with bleeding fingers. Stop assuming anyone will help you. In this age, help comes with a price, usually your subservience, your labor, or your flesh. The concept of individual rights doesn't exist. Privacy is a luxury no one can afford. Personal space extends only as far as the reach of your weapon. Your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, none of these matter. What matters is whether you can swing a club, whether you can track prey through snow, whether you can endure pain without screaming and alerting every predator within a mile radius. Everything in this world has one priority: eat, survive, reproduce. The complexity of human emotion, the nuance of relationship, the sophisticated dance of social interaction, all of it collapses into this brutal trinity. If you want to live, you will have to embrace this savage simplicity. There is no honor in starvation. There are no morals in freezing to death. There are no ethics when a cave bear is charging at you with murder in its eyes. Only instincts, sharpened like flint, honed by desperation, refined by the constant presence of death. Your body will betray everything you think you know about yourself. You'll discover muscles you never knew existed as they cramp from cold and overuse. You'll learn that hunger isn't just an empty stomach. It's a gnawing madness that makes you consider things that would have horrified you in your previous life. Thirst becomes a screaming demon that drives rational thought from your mind. Exhaustion isn't just being tired, it's a weight that presses down on every bone, every joint, every fiber of your being, until the simple act of breathing becomes a conscious effort. You will become an animal, not because you want to, not because you choose to, but because it's the only way to stay alive. The veneer of civilization that you've worn your entire life will crack and peel away like old paint, revealing something primal underneath, something that knows how to kill, something that can endure pain, something that will do whatever it takes to see another sunrise. This transformation isn't metaphorical, it's literal. Your posture will change as you learn to move silently through underbrush. Your senses will sharpen as your survival depends on hearing the snap of a twig or catching the scent of smoke on the wind. Your hands will become tools, calloused, scarred, capable of violence. Your eyes will develop a constant wariness, scanning for threats, for opportunities, for escape routes. The person you were before, with your job, your relationships, your hobbies, your preferences, that person dies on day one. What emerges is something harder, meaner, more desperate. Something that can look at another human being and calculate their usefulness. Something that can watch suffering without flinching. Something that can make decisions based purely on survival mathematics, weighing the cost of compassion against the price of staying alive. You'll learn to read the world in ways you never imagined. The color of the sky will tell you when storms are coming. The behavior of birds will warn you of approaching predators. The wind will carry information, scents, sounds, temperatures that spell the difference between life and death. You'll become a student of violence, learning to recognize the signs of aggression in both humans and animals, understanding the subtle body language that precedes attack. Your relationship with your own body will fundamentally change. Pain becomes a teacher, not an enemy. Injury becomes a calculation, not a crisis. You'll learn to work through discomfort that would have sent you to a hospital in your previous life. You'll discover reserves of strength and endurance you never knew existed, pushed to the surface by the simple fact that stopping means dying. The social creature you once were will be replaced by something more primitive, more focused, more ruthless. You'll learn to evaluate every interaction through the lens of survival. Does this person make me stronger or weaker? Do they bring skills I need, or do they consume resources I can't spare? Can I trust them with my life, or are they a threat that needs to be eliminated? This isn't a temporary change. This isn't something you can undo when the danger passes. The person who survives the Neanderthal era won't be the same person who entered it. There'll be something harder, something colder, something that modern society might not recognize as fully human. Because in a world without mercy, mercy becomes a fatal weakness. In a world without compassion, compassion becomes a luxury you can't afford. And perhaps most horrifying of all, you'll find that you're capable of it. All of it. The violence, the coldness, the ruthless calculation. It's already inside you, waiting. Civilization didn't eliminate these instincts. It just taught you to suppress them. But in the Neanderthal era, suppression is suicide. The animal inside you isn't your enemy, it's your salvation. Part 2. Know the Neanderthal, your only ally or your doom. Neanderthals are not your ancestors. They are your prehistoric roommates, and they hold the keys to your survival or your death sentence. Stocky, muscular, and built like walking boulders, Neanderthals dominate this world through sheer power, ancient wisdom, and an understanding of the Ice Age that you'll never fully grasp. First, abandon every stereotype you've absorbed about these people. They are not the knuckle-dragging brutes of popular imagination. They are not simple-minded savages stumbling through the wilderness. Neanderthals are sophisticated survivors who have mastered this hostile environment for hundreds of thousands of years. Their brains are actually larger than yours, specialized for the kind of spatial reasoning and environmental awareness that keeps them alive in conditions that would kill you in hours. They are not mindless. They have their own intelligence, a quiet, calculating awareness that operates on frequencies you're not equipped to detect. Watch a Neanderthal hunter tracking prey, and you'll witness a masterclass in observation. They can read stories in footprints that you can't even see. They can predict weather patterns from the behavior of insects. They can identify edible plants from poisonous ones with a glance. Their intelligence isn't abstract, it's concrete, practical, honed by millennia of life or death decision-making. They can craft tools with a precision that would impress modern artisans. A Neanderthal napper can turn a chunk of raw flint into a razor-sharp spear point in minutes, using techniques passed down through generations. They understand the properties of different stones, woods, and bones in ways that would take you years to learn. They can tend fires that burn for days without going out, regulate temperature through careful arrangement of fuel and airflow, create complex tools from seemingly worthless materials. Their tracking abilities border on the supernatural. A Neanderthal can follow a weeks-old trail across frozen ground, reading signs invisible to your eyes. They can tell you not just what animal passed by, but how long ago, whether it was injured, what it had been eating, whether it was being pursued. They move through the landscape like they're reading a book written in mud and snow and broken twigs. But here's what you need to understand, above all else: their minds, the cognitive frameworks that organize your thoughts, the linguistic structures that shape your understanding, the cultural assumptions that govern your behavior. None of these apply to Neanderthals. They don't speak like us. They don't think like us. They don't process the world like us. They communicate in grunts, glances, and gestures. But this apparent simplicity masks a sophisticated system of nonverbal communication. A raised eyebrow can convey information about distant prey. A subtle hand gesture can coordinate a complex hunt involving multiple participants. A barely audible grunt can signal danger that you won't notice until it's too late. You'll spend months learning to read these signals, and you'll never master them completely. Their social structures operate on principles that would seem alien to you. Leadership isn't about charisma or intelligence. It's about competence and strength. Status isn't earned through achievement. It's demonstrated through survival. Relationships aren't built on emotional connections. They're forged through shared hardship and mutual utility. What looks like friendship to you might be a calculated alliance. What seems like casual interaction might be a complex negotiation over resources and territory. If they let you stay near them, understand this crucial fact: you are being tolerated, not accepted. You are not a member of their family, their clan, their species. You are a curiosity at best, a potential threat at worst. They'll let you sleep near their fire, not out of kindness, but because you might be useful. They'll share their food, not from generosity, but because a living human might serve their purposes better than a dead one. This tolerance comes with invisible boundaries that you'll cross at your peril. Step out of line, eat before the leader, interrupt a hunt, show weakness at the wrong moment, challenge their authority, even inadvertently, and you might find yourself facing a level of violence that will shock you with its suddenness and brutality. Neanderthals don't issue warnings. They don't have lengthy discussions about behavioral problems. They solve problems with decisive action. And you don't want to become a problem that needs solving. The key to survival among Neanderthals is understanding your place in their hierarchy and never, ever overstepping it. You are at the bottom. You stay at the bottom. You make yourself useful from the bottom. You earn respect through consistent utility, not through attempts to prove your worth or demonstrate your intelligence. They don't care about your education, your achievements, your potential. They care about what you can do right now to make their lives easier and their survival more certain. Blend in by being useful. Carry meat without being asked. Maintain tools without being directed. Anticipate needs before they become problems. Learn their routines and slot yourself into them seamlessly. Sharpen stones during downtime. Gather fuel for fires. Process hides when prey is killed. Stay busy, stay productive, stay valuable. Show submission without looking pathetic. This is a delicate balance that could determine whether you live or die. Too much submission and you appear weak, a liability that consumes resources without contributing to little submission, and you appear challenging, a threat to be eliminated. The perfect balance involves demonstrating your usefulness while clearly acknowledging their superiority. Work hard, but don't compete. Contribute, but don't lead. Support, but don't suggest. Stay silent unless addressed. Neanderthals value economy of communication. They don't engage in small talk, casual banter, or unnecessary conversation. Every word serves a purpose. Learn to communicate through action rather than speech. When they do speak to you, listen carefully and respond minimally. Don't elaborate. Don't explain. Don't offer opinions unless specifically asked. Learn their body language obsessively. A Neanderthal's posture will tell you more about their mood and intentions than their words ever will. Tension in their shoulders might indicate approaching danger. Changes in their breathing pattern might signal the beginning of a hunt. The way they hold their hands might reveal their level of aggression or readiness for violence. Your survival depends on reading these subtle cues and responding appropriately. Understand that their loyalty operates on different principles than yours. They don't form emotional attachments to individuals outside their immediate bloodline. Their commitment to you is entirely practical. As long as you're useful, you're protected. The moment you become a burden, you become expendable. This isn't cruelty, it's survival mathematics. Resources are limited, threats are constant, and sentiment is a luxury they can't afford. Survival in a Neanderthal band means walking a razor-thin edge between predator and prey. You must be valuable enough to keep alive, but not threatening enough to eliminate. You must be competent enough to contribute, but not skilled enough to compete. You must be present enough to be useful, but invisible enough to avoid notice. It's a psychological tightrope that requires constant vigilance and perfect balance. Remember that their tolerance of you is always temporary, always conditional, always subject to change without warning. The Neanderthal who shares food with you today might kill you tomorrow if circumstances change. The leader who protects you this week might sacrifice you next week if resources become scarce. Your position is never secure, never guaranteed, never permanent. But if you can navigate this dangerous relationship successfully, if you can make yourself indispensable while remaining not threatening, if you can earn their grudging respect while never challenging their authority, then you might just survive long enough to see another season. The Neanderthals are your only hope in this frozen hell. Treat them accordingly. Part 3. Survive the ice or die slowly. The cold is not just weather. It's a living entity with malevolent intelligence, constantly probing for weakness, searching for the tiny gaps in your defenses that will allow it to creep in and steal your life 1 degree at a time. The cold is relentless, patient, inevitable. Every breath you take burns your lungs with crystalline fire. Every wind cuts through layers of hide like invisible knives, finding the spaces between your inadequate coverings and driving the chill deep into your bones. Hypothermia doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in silently, stealing your heartbeat while you sleep, robbing your thoughts of clarity, turning your blood to slush in your veins. In the Neanderthal era, cold is the primary antagonist of human existence. It kills more people than predators, more than disease, more than violence. It's everywhere, inescapable, constantly present. Even in what passes for summer in this ice age, temperatures rarely rise above what you'd consider comfortable. In winter, the cold becomes a crushing weight that presses down on every living thing, testing the limits of biological endurance. You need fur, and a lot of it, not just for warmth, but for survival. Your modern clothing, cotton, synthetic fabrics, lightweight materials designed for climate-controlled environments, is worse than useless here. It's actively dangerous, soaking up moisture, losing insulation when wet, providing no protection against the killing cold. You need the kind of insulation that evolution spent millions of years perfecting. Animal fur, thick hide, dense layers of fat, and hair that can trap warm air and repel moisture. Your first kill should be something with thick hide: reindeer, bison, mammoth, if you're incredibly lucky, or even wolf if you can manage it. The quality of your kill determines the quality of your protection, and the quality of your protection determines whether you live or die. A thin-furred rabbit might feed you for a day, but it won't keep you warm through a single night. You need bulk, thickness, density, the kind of pelt that can create a barrier between your fragile human skin and the hungry cold. You'll have to skin it yourself, and you'll have to do it right the first time. There are no second chances, no do-overs, no room for error. A poorly processed hide will rot, stiffen, crack, or fall apart when you need it most. Learn to make your first cut behind the head, working the knife carefully between skin and muscle. Peel the hide away in one piece if possible, preserving the integrity of the pelt. Every puncture, every tear, every mistake reduces the hide's effectiveness as protection. The processing is as important as the skinning. You'll need to scrape away every bit of fat, flesh, and connective tissue from the inside of the hide. This isn't cosmetic work. Leftover organic material will rot, creating weak spots that will fail when stressed. Use sharp stones, broken bones, whatever tools you can fashion to scrape the hide clean. Your hands will bleed from the work. Your back will ache from bending over the hide for hours. But thoroughness here means the difference between protection and exposure. Smoking the hide over a fire isn't optional, it's essential. The smoke cures the leather, making it more flexible and resistant to moisture. It also adds scent that can mask your human odor from predators. Build a low, smoky fire using green wood or damp materials that produce heavy smoke rather than clean flame. Stretch the hide over a frame of branches and expose it to smoke for days, turning it regularly to ensure even treatment. Learn to tie pieces together with sinew, the tough connective tissue that holds muscles to bones. Sinew is nature's thread, stronger than any plant fiber, more durable than any manufactured material. Remove it carefully from your kills, clean it thoroughly, and use it to sew hides together into garments that can actually protect you. This isn't fashion, it's engineering. Every seam must be strong enough to withstand stress, tight enough to prevent heat loss, positioned correctly to allow for movement. The layering principle that modern outdoor enthusiasts understand dimly was a matter of life and death in the Ice Age. You need multiple layers that work together to trap warm air while allowing moisture to escape. Start with a base layer of soft fur against your skin. Rabbit, fox, or similar small animals with dense, fine hair. Add middle layers of medium-weight pelts for insulation. Top it with an outer shell of thick, tough hide that can resist wind and precipitation. But insulation alone isn't enough. You need to understand how heat escapes from the human body and design your protection accordingly. Most heat loss occurs through your head, neck, hands, and feet, areas where blood vessels run close to the surface. A perfect fur coat is useless if your head is exposed. Learn to make proper headgear, mittens, and foot coverings. These aren't accessories, they're life support systems. Fire is your god now, and like all gods, it demands constant attention, sacrifice, and worship. Guard it with your life because, quite literally, your life depends on it. Fire provides warmth, light, protection, and the ability to cook food and process materials. Without fire, you're just another piece of meat stumbling around in the dark, waiting for something to eat you. Understanding fire in the Ice Age means understanding that it's not something you can create casually whenever you need it. Making fire from scratch is difficult, time-consuming, and not always successful. Every flame is precious, every ember is treasure, every coal is a lifeline that must be protected and preserved. If the flame dies, it could take you with it, literally. You could die in the time it takes to create a new fire from nothing. This is why coal preservation becomes a sacred art. Coals must be carried in containers, stone bowls if you can make them, shells if you can find them, or wrapped in moss and clay if you have nothing else. The goal is to maintain just enough heat to reignite a flame without actually burning your transportation method. Pack coals in materials that smolder slowly, dry moss, bark, or specially prepared tinder that will burn just enough to keep the coals alive during travel. Learn to read your fire like a book. The color of the flames tells you about the fuel and the air supply. Blue flames indicate complete combustion and maximum heat. Yellow flames suggest incomplete burning and wasted fuel. Red flames often mean insufficient oxygen or poor fuel quality. The sound of the fire, the crackling, popping, hissing, provides information about moisture content, wood density, and burning efficiency. Fuel selection becomes a matter of survival strategy. Different materials burn in different ways, providing different types of heat for different purposes. Hardwoods burn hot and long, perfect for overnight warmth, but difficult to ignite. Softwoods catch fire easily, but burn quickly, good for starting fires, but poor for sustained heat. Pine and other resinous woods burn with intense heat and bright light, but produce smoke that can be seen for miles. Dry grass and leaves ignite instantly, but provide almost no lasting heat. Reigniting your fire using flint and steel, or flint and pyrite if you can find it, requires skill that comes only from practice. The technique involves striking the flint against the steel at precisely the right angle to produce sparks, catching those sparks in prepared tinder, and nurturing the tiny flame into sustainable fire. The tinder must be absolutely dry, finely prepared, and arranged to catch and hold sparks. Your hands must be steady despite cold, fatigue, and stress. Your technique must be perfect because you might not get a second chance. Practice this skill obsessively. Practice when you're warm and comfortable so you can succeed when you're cold and desperate. Practice with different types of tinder, different striking techniques, different weather conditions. Practice until the motions become automatic, until your hands know what to do, even when your mind is clouded by hypothermia or panic. You will not get a second chance in the dead of night when the temperature drops below survival threshold and your fire dies to glowing embers. In those moments, the difference between life and death is measured in seconds. The seconds it takes to coax flame from dying coals. The seconds you have before hypothermia steals the dexterity from your fingers. The seconds before the cold completes its patient work and claims another victim. The cold is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It will teach you efficiency, preparation, and the true value of warmth. It will strip away everything unnecessary and show you what really matters. It will make you harder, tougher, more resourceful, but it will also kill you without hesitation if you give it the slightest opportunity. Respect the cold, fear it, prepare for it constantly, because in the Neanderthal era, the cold is always watching, always waiting, always ready to remind you that in this world, warmth isn't a comfort, it's a privilege that must be earned anew every single day. Part 4. Eat like a killer, not a gatherer. Forget everything you think you know about nutrition, balanced diets, and healthy eating. Forget salads and smoothies and organic vegetables. Forget fruits and grains and all the plant-based foods that form the foundation of modern nutrition. In the Neanderthal era, those concepts don't just not exist. They're actively dangerous misconceptions that will kill you through starvation while you waste precious time and energy searching for foods that aren't there. The Neanderthal diet is meat, fat, and marrow, period. This isn't a choice based on preference or culture. It's a biological imperative dictated by the realities of Ice Age survival. The massive caloric demands of maintaining body temperature in sub-freezing conditions, combined with the enormous physical effort required just to stay alive, mean that you need the most energy-dense foods available. Plant foods, when you can find them, simply don't provide enough calories to sustain life in this environment. You eat what you kill, and you eat fast, before something larger catches the scent of blood and decides to investigate. In this world, the smell of fresh meat carries for miles, and every predator in the area will converge on a kill site within hours. You don't have the luxury of leisurely meals or careful food preparation. You eat with desperate efficiency, consuming as much as you can, as quickly as possible, then moving on before you become prey yourself. Neanderthals are apex carnivores, and their eating habits reflect this reality. They don't waste any part of a kill, because waste equals death. They crush bones for the marrow, the fatty tissue inside bones that contains more calories per gram than any other food source. They eat organs raw if the fire's out, understanding that organ meat provides essential nutrients that muscle meat lacks. They prioritize fat over muscle, seeking out the energy-dense adipose tissue that provides the sustained energy needed for survival. This priority system isn't arbitrary. It's based on thousands of years of trial and error, passed down through generations of survivors. Liver comes first because it's packed with vitamins and minerals that prevent deficiency diseases. Brain provides essential fatty acids that support neurological function. Heart muscle contains high concentrations of nutrients that muscle meat lacks. These aren't delicacies, they're survival foods that can mean the difference between health and disease, strength and weakness, life and death. If you can't stomach this reality, you'll starve. Your modern sensibilities about food safety, preparation, and palatability are not just irrelevant. they're dangerous. Raw meat isn't disgusting when you're hungry enough. Blood isn't revolting when you need the iron it contains. Organ meat isn't gross when it's preventing scurvy or other deficiency diseases. Your disgust response is a luxury you can't afford. The procurement of this food requires skills that go far beyond modern hunting or fishing. You can trap small game with snare loops made from gut, twisted into nearly invisible traps that can catch rabbits, birds, or other small animals while you're occupied with other survival tasks. But these snares require understanding of animal behavior, knowledge of game trails, and the ability to create effective triggers and holding mechanisms from natural materials. Setting snares is an art form that takes years to master. You need to identify the routes that animals use regularly. Paths worn by countless passages, marked by droppings, fur, and other signs. You need to understand the height at which different animals carry their heads, the size of loop needed to catch them effectively, the type of material that won't break under stress. You need to camouflage your snares so they don't alarm prey. Position them so they don't accidentally catch non-target animals, and check them frequently enough that you don't lose meat to scavengers. But small game provides only subsistence-level nutrition. Large prey requires teamwork, coordination, and a level of violence that might shock you with its intensity and brutality. Learn to throw a spear with accuracy and power, but understand that throwing weapons are often luxury items in close quarters hunting. Better yet, learn to stab with a spear, to use it as a close combat weapon that can deliver killing blows at arm's length. This is up-close, dirty work where you smell your prey's last breath and feel their blood spray across your face. Hunting large animals in the Ice Age isn't the distant, clinical activity portrayed in modern hunting culture. It's a desperate, dangerous, exhausting process that involves tracking wounded animals for miles, fighting them hand-to-hand when they turn to defend themselves, and risking serious injury or death with every encounter. Mammoth hunting, when it happens, involves entire groups of people working together to drive a massive animal into position where it can be killed, often by forcing it over cliffs or into traps where it can be speared to death. The weapons available to you are crude by modern standards, but devastatingly effective when used properly. Spears tipped with napped flint points can penetrate hide and muscle to reach vital organs. Clubs weighted with stones can crush bones and skulls. Atlatls, spear-throwing devices that multiply the force and distance of thrown spears, can launch projectiles with enough force to penetrate thick hide from considerable distances. But all of these weapons require skill, strength, and the willingness to close to killing distance. Tracking is a prerequisite skill that involves reading stories written in mud, snow, and vegetation. A good tracker can follow days-old trails, determine the size and health of prey animals, predict their movements and destinations. Footprints tell you about gait, speed, and direction. Scat provides information about diet and health. Broken vegetation reveals the height and bulk of passing animals. Hair caught on branches indicates the thickness of fur and the direction of travel. But even successful hunting is only the beginning of the food procurement process. Butchering a large animal requires tools, knowledge, and considerable physical effort. You need to open the carcass quickly to prevent spoilage. Remove the organs in the correct order to avoid contamination. Separate the meat into portions that can be transported and preserved. Every cut must be purposeful, every piece utilized, every resource maximized. Preservation becomes critical because meat spoils quickly, especially in conditions where refrigeration is impossible. Smoking, drying, and salt curing are the primary methods available. Smoking involves building special fires that produce heavy smoke rather than heat, exposing meat to the smoke for days or weeks until it's thoroughly dehydrated and preserved. Drying requires proper air circulation and protection from flies and other insects that would contaminate the meat. And then there are the lean times, the periods when hunting fails, when prey animals migrate beyond reach, when weather prevents successful foraging. In these times, the comfortable boundaries of modern morality dissolve into survival mathematics. Sometimes food runs out. Sometimes you find meat that's been dead for days. Sometimes you discover human remains that still have nutritional value. Don't look surprised. This isn't about morality, it's about math. Calories in versus calories expended. Survival versus starvation. Life versus death. Cannibalism isn't a moral choice in the Ice Age, it's a practical one. When the choice is between eating human flesh and dying, the decision becomes simple. Not because human meat is preferred, but because death is not acceptable. This isn't about evil or depravity. It's about the harsh realities of survival in a world where sentiment is a luxury that can kill you. The psychological barriers that prevent modern humans from considering these options are products of abundance, security, and social conditioning. In the Ice Age, those barriers are not just irrelevant, they're dangerous. They can prevent you from making the choices necessary to survive. They can kill you through misplaced squeamishness, while perfectly good nutrition goes to waste. You must learn to see food as fuel, nothing more and nothing less. The cow that died last week is fuel. The human who froze to death yesterday is fuel. The maggots growing in rotting meat are fuel. Your survival depends on your ability to consume whatever calories are available, regardless of their source or your personal feelings about them. This isn't about becoming a monster, it's about becoming a survivor. The person who lives through the Ice Age isn't necessarily the strongest or the smartest. They're the one who can make the hard choices, who can adapt to realities that would break lesser individuals, who can do whatever it takes to see another sunrise. In the Neanderthal era, you eat like a killer because anything less is suicide by starvation. Learn to embrace this reality or become another casualty of misplaced moral priorities in a world that doesn't care about your ethics. Part 5. Hunt or be hunted. The forest is not your friend. The Ice Age landscape is not a park, not a hiking trail, not a place where you can wander safely while appreciating nature's beauty. It's a complex ecosystem of predator and prey relationships where every creature, including you, fits somewhere on the food chain and where your position is far from secure. Everything is watching you, evaluating you, calculating whether you represent opportunity or threat, food or danger. If you leave camp alone, you're not a brave explorer or an independent hunter. You're bait. Understanding your place in this ecosystem requires abandoning every assumption you've absorbed about human dominance over nature. In the modern world, humans are apex predators through technology guns, vehicles, buildings, communication systems that allow us to coordinate responses to threats. In the Ice Age, you're a mid-tier omnivore with poor sensory capabilities, inadequate natural weapons, and survival skills that wouldn't impress a field mouse. Your advantages are intelligence, tool use, and cooperation. Your disadvantages are everything else. Saber-toothed cats still stalk these lands, and they are not the oversized house cats of popular imagination. Smilodon and related species are purpose-built killing machines with canine teeth that can punch through thick skulls, powerful forearms that can pin large prey, and hunting strategies refined over millions of years. They're ambush predators that strike from concealment with devastating speed and power. They can kill a full-grown human in seconds and disappear back into the underbrush before anyone realizes what happened. Cave hyenas prowl in massive packs, sometimes numbering in the dozens. Unlike their modern counterparts, Ice Age hyenas are primarily hunters rather than scavengers. They coordinate their attacks with sophisticated communication systems, use pack tactics to isolate and exhaust prey, and have jaws powerful enough to crack mammoth bones. A pack of cave hyenas can bring down prey much larger than themselves through persistence hunting, wearing down victims over long distances until exhaustion makes them vulnerable. Dire wolves are not the mythical creatures of fantasy novels. They're real animals that survived in North America until the end of the Ice Age, and their European relatives are equally formidable, larger and more robust than modern wolves. Dire wolves hunt in coordinated packs that can take down prey as large as bison or elk. They're intelligent, adaptable, and capable of learning human behavior patterns. A dire wolf pack that discovers human settlements will return repeatedly, probing for weaknesses, testing defenses, waiting for opportunities. Even birds of prey pose serious threats in this environment. Giant eagles and other raptors are large enough to take children or malnourished adults, and they hunt with aerial advantages that make them nearly impossible to defend against. They strike from above without warning, use their talons to inflict crippling wounds, and can carry off prey to inaccessible locations where rescue is impossible. The forest doesn't care how clever you are, how educated you are, how sophisticated your problem-solving abilities might be. Intelligence without experience is often worse than useless. It leads to overconfidence that gets you killed. The forest respects blood and silence, violence and caution, strength and stealth. It rewards those who understand their limitations and punishes those who overestimate their capabilities. Your movement through this landscape must be calculated, deliberate, and informed by constant awareness of your vulnerability. Step lightly, not because you're trying to be polite, but because heavy footsteps announce your presence to every predator within hearing distance. Stay downwind of areas where predators might be lurking, because your scent carries information about your health, your fear levels, your species, and your approximate location. Avoid water sources at night, not because they're inherently dangerous, but because they attract prey animals, which in turn attract predators, and because the sound of moving water masks the sounds that might warn you of approaching threats. Learn to read the landscape like a tactical manual. High ground provides visibility and escape routes, but also exposes you to observation by predators and makes you a visible target. Dense vegetation offers concealment but limits your ability to detect approaching threats and restricts your movement options. Open areas allow for rapid movement but provide no cover if you're pursued. Every terrain feature represents a trade-off between different types of risk. Always assume you're being watched, because, in most cases, you are. The Ice Age landscape supports predator populations that would seem impossible by modern standards. Carnivores are everywhere in the trees, in the undergrowth, in caves and crevices, behind boulders and fallen logs. Many of them are active primarily during twilight hours, when human vision is least effective. Others are nocturnal hunters that use darkness as camouflage. Some are patient ambush predators that can remain motionless for hours, waiting for prey to wander into striking distance. Scan tree lines constantly, looking for shapes that don't belong, movements that seem unnatural, eyes that reflect available light. Feel vibrations in the earth through your feet. Large predators create ground tremors that can be detected by sensitive individuals. Listen for changes in the ambient sound environment. When normal forest sounds stop suddenly, it usually means that a major predator has entered the area and other animals are hiding. Pay attention to the behavior of birds, small mammals, and insects. They're early warning systems that can alert you to dangers you haven't yet detected. When birds take flight suddenly, without obvious cause, something has disturbed them. When small animals freeze or flee, they've sensed a threat. When insects stop buzzing or chirping, the silence often indicates the presence of a major predator. If the Neanderthals go silent, you go silent immediately. Don't ask questions. Don't seek explanations. Don't wait to understand what's happening. The Neanderthals have sensory capabilities and environmental awareness that you lack. They can detect threats that are completely invisible to you. They know things before you do, and their survival instincts have been honed by hundreds of thousands of years of successful survival in this environment. Watch them obsessively. Study their body language, their movement patterns, their responses to environmental cues. Learn to recognize the subtle signs that indicate they've detected danger changes in posture, alterations in breathing patterns, shifts in attention, focus. Trust their instincts more than your own, because their instincts are based on vastly more experience and much better environmental adaptation than yours. Never hunt alone. This isn't just good advice. It's a survival imperative that can mean the difference between successful foraging and becoming food yourself. Solo hunting in the Ice Age is essentially suicide. You lack the sensory capabilities to detect approaching predators, the physical strength to defend yourself against major threats, the speed to escape from most dangerous situations, and the backup support needed when things go wrong. Hunting parties provide multiple advantages beyond simple safety in numbers. Different individuals can watch different directions simultaneously, creating a 360-degree awareness that no single person can maintain. Multiple hunters can coordinate attacks on large prey, using tactics that would be impossible for individuals. Group hunting allows for specializations. Some members can focus on tracking, while others concentrate on weapon preparation or escape route planning. But group hunting also requires discipline and coordination that goes far beyond casual cooperation. Every member must understand their role, follow established protocols, and subordinate their individual impulses to group strategy. Communication must be minimal, and precise and necessary noise can alert prey or attract predators. Movement must be coordinated to avoid interfering with other hunters or creating confusion during critical moments. The weapons you carry are not just tools, they're lifelines that must be maintained, improved, and ready for instant use. A dull spear point can mean the difference between a clean kill and a wounded, dangerous animal. A loose spear binding can result in weapon failure at the moment you need it most. A poorly balanced club can throw off your aim when accuracy is essential for survival. Learn to evaluate hunting opportunities with cold, mathematical precision. Is the potential prey worth the energy expenditure required to pursue it? Are there safer alternatives available? Do you have adequate weapons and support for the type of hunt being considered? Can you process and preserve the meat if the hunt is successful? Are there environmental factors that increase the risk of the hunt beyond acceptable levels? Understand that wounded animals are often more dangerous than healthy ones. An injured mammoth, bison, or cave bear becomes a desperate opponent with nothing to lose. They'll fight with a ferocity that healthy animals reserve for protecting their young. They can't be scared off, can't be intimidated, can't be reasoned with. They must be killed quickly and decisively, or they'll kill you. The tracking skills required for successful hunting go far beyond simply following footprints. You need to understand animal behavior patterns, where different species go to drink, feed, rest, and seek shelter. You need to predict their movements based on weather conditions, seasonal changes, time of day, and pressure from other predators. You need to recognize signs of illness, injury, or stress that might make particular animals easier or more dangerous to hunt. Weather affects hunting in ways that can turn routine foraging into life-threatening situations. Wind direction determines whether your scent reaches prey before you can get close enough for a successful attack. Rain and snow can eliminate tracks, making prey difficult to follow. Extreme cold affects the performance of both hunters and prey, changing the dynamics of pursuit and confrontation. Learn to hunt injured or sick animals. When possible, they're easier to catch and less dangerous to approach. But also understand that diseased meat can be hazardous to consume. Develop the ability to recognize signs of illness in prey animals and make informed decisions about whether the risk of contaminated food is worth the benefit of easier hunting. The psychological aspects of hunting are as important as the physical skills. Killing large animals requires a level of mental toughness that many modern humans lack. You must be able to look into the eyes of a living creature and drive a spear into its heart without hesitation, remorse, or failure of nerve. Any reluctance, any moment of doubt, any emotional response can result in a wounded animal that escapes or attacks. But perhaps most importantly, understand that in the Ice Age ecosystem, the line between hunter and hunted shifts constantly. The successful predator can become prey within minutes if circumstances change. The confident hunter can become a desperate survivor. When a larger predator arrives on the scene, your role in any given situation depends not on your intentions or your self-image, but on the presence of other creatures that are stronger, faster, better armed, or more numerous than you are. In the Neanderthal era, hunting isn't a sport or a hobby, it's a deadly, serious competition where second place is death. You hunt with the understanding that everything you pursue is potentially capable of killing you, and everything that hunts you is definitely trying to kill you. Success requires not just skill and courage, but intelligence, preparation, and the constant awareness that in this world, you are simultaneously predator and prey. Part 6. Sleep like you're already dead. Rest is an illusion in the Ice Age, a dangerous fantasy that can get you killed while you dream of safety that doesn't exist. Sleep isn't the peaceful, restorative experience you're accustomed to from your climate-controlled bedroom with locked doors and security systems. It's a period of maximum vulnerability where your reduced awareness makes you easy prey for the countless predators that hunt in darkness. You don't sleep in the Neanderthal era. You hide, and you do it with the understanding that every moment of unconsciousness might be your last. At night, you don't rest, you endure. The darkness brings a host of new threats that are specifically adapted to hunt sleeping prey. Nocturnal predators have enhanced senses that make them vastly more dangerous than their daytime counterparts. They can see in near total darkness, hear your breathing from considerable distances, smell your fear and exhaustion, and move with silence that makes them nearly impossible to detect until they're close enough to kill. The cold will try to kill you during sleep just as aggressively as it does during waking hours, but with the added disadvantage that you're not moving to generate body heat. Your metabolic rate drops during sleep, reducing your natural heat production at the exact time when you're most vulnerable to hypothermia. The temperature differential between your warm body and the frigid environment becomes a death trap that can stop your heart without waking you. Every exhale creates a cloud of warm, moist air that carries your scent in all directions, advertising your presence to any predator within miles. Every breath you take makes noise that can be heard by creatures with far better hearing than yours. Every movement you make during sleep creates vibrations that travel through the ground, announcing your location to things that hunt by sensing the movement of prey. Fire will help, but it also paints a target that can be seen for miles in the clear, cold air of the Ice Age. The light from your fire tells every intelligent predator in the area exactly where you are, how many people are in your group, and how well defended your position might be. The smoke carries scent information that reveals what you've been eating, whether you're sick or injured, and how long you've been in the area. But fire also provides crucial advantages that often outweigh its risks. It keeps large predators at a distance. Most animals have an instinctive fear of fire that prevents them from approaching too closely. It provides warmth that can mean the difference between waking up and never waking up. It creates light that expands your ability to detect approaching threats. The crackling and popping of burning wood can mask small sounds that might otherwise alert predators to your presence. The key is learning to manage fire strategically, using it for maximum benefit while minimizing the risks. Build fires in locations that provide natural windbreaks and concealment against rock faces in shallow depressions, among dense vegetation that can diffuse the light. Use dry wood that burns with minimal smoke when possible. Keep fires small enough to provide necessary warmth and light without creating beacons that can be seen from great distances. Sleep in shifts whenever possible, ensuring that someone is always awake and alert while others rest. This requires coordination and trust that may be difficult to establish, especially early in your relationship with Neanderthal groups. But the mathematics of survival make this arrangement essential. A group where everyone sleeps simultaneously is a group that won't survive long. The person on watch isn't just staying awake, they're actively monitoring the environment for signs of approaching threats. They're listening for changes in ambient sound levels, watching for movement at the edge of vision, feeling for vibrations that might indicate large animals moving in the area. They're tending the fire, ensuring that it provides adequate light and warmth without growing large enough to attract unwanted attention. Form barriers with rocks, branches, fallen logs, or whatever materials are available. These barriers won't stop a determined predator, but they will slow down attacks and create noise that can wake sleeping group members. Position barriers to channel potential attackers into predetermined areas where they can be confronted more effectively. Leave gaps that can serve as escape routes if the camp is overrun. If you find yourself alone, and this is a situation you should avoid at all costs, your sleeping arrangements become even more critical. Find high ground whenever possible. Cliff ledges, large tree branches, rock outcroppings that are difficult for ground-based predators to access. Height provides multiple advantages. It's harder for most predators to reach. It gives you better visibility of surrounding areas, and it offers potential escape routes if you can climb higher or move along elevated terrain. But elevated sleeping spots come with their own risks. Falls can cause injuries that might not be immediately fatal, but that will make you vulnerable to predation or exposure. Weather exposure is often more severe on elevated terrain. Some predators, particularly large cats, are excellent climbers that can access elevated positions as easily as ground-level sites. Sleep with one eye open isn't just a metaphor. It's a survival technique that requires practice and discipline. Learn to maintain partial awareness during rest, keeping your subconscious mind alert to changes in your environment. This isn't the deep, restorative sleep that modern humans are accustomed to. It's a state of controlled semi-consciousness that allows for rapid awakening when threats arise. Keep weapons within immediate reach at all times. Your spear, club, or knife should be positioned so you can grab them instantly upon waking, without having to search or fumble in the darkness. Practice grabbing your weapons in various positions and lighting conditions until the motion becomes automatic. In life or death situations, the seconds required to locate and ready a weapon can determine whether you survive an attack. Your ears become your primary defense system during sleep. Learn to distinguish between different types of sounds. Wind moving through vegetation versus the footsteps of large animals. Natural settling noises versus the sounds made by approaching predators. Normal nighttime animal activity versus the silence that often precedes an attack. Develop the ability to wake completely and instantly when necessary. The grogginess and disorientation that accompany normal awakening are luxuries you can't afford when predators are nearby. Practice waking techniques that allow you to go from sleep to full alertness in seconds. Learn to assess your situation immediately upon waking. Where are you? What woke you? Where are your weapons? What are your escape routes? Understand that some threats are specifically adapted to hunt sleeping prey. Certain predators have learned to associate firelight with easy meals, and they approach camps specifically to prey on sleeping humans. Others have developed techniques for silent approach that allow them to get close enough to attack before their prey can wake and defend themselves. The concept of safe sleeping locations doesn't exist in the Ice Age. Every spot where you rest is a potential death trap that requires constant vigilance and strategic thinking. Caves might seem like natural shelters, but they can also be occupied by bears, cats, or other predators that will view you as an intruder. Dense vegetation provides concealment, but also restricts your ability to detect approaching threats and limits escape routes. Weather conditions dramatically affect the safety of different sleeping arrangements. Wind can mask the sounds of approaching predators, but also increases heat loss and makes fire management more difficult. Snow provides insulation, but can also muffle sounds and create conditions where predators can approach without being detected. Rain increases the risk of hypothermia while reducing visibility and making it difficult to to maintain fires. Learn to read the signs that indicate whether a potential sleeping site has been used by predators. Scat, claw marks, scent markings, and hair caught on vegetation all provide information about what animals frequent the area. Fresh signs indicate current activity and should be avoided. Old signs might indicate abandoned territories that could be relatively safe. But perhaps most importantly, understand that in the Neanderthal era, sleep is not a time of peace and restoration. It's a calculated risk that you take because the alternative is death by exhaustion. Every time you close your eyes, you're gambling that you'll wake up again. Every night you survive is a victory against odds that are stacked heavily against you. Because when death comes in this age, it doesn't knock on doors or announce its presence. It crawls in on silent feet, moving with patient precision through the darkness. It waits for moments of weakness, for lapses in attention, for the brief periods when exhaustion overwhelms vigilance. And it strikes with a sudden, brutal efficiency that ends lives before victims fully understand what's happening to them. Part 7. Pain is a predator. 2. In the Neanderthal era, pain isn't just discomfort. It's an active predator that stalks you as relentlessly as any cave lion or direwolf. It's a hunter that never sleeps, never gives up, never shows mercy. Unlike the predators that you can sometimes avoid through stealth or intelligence, pain is inescapable, inevitable, and absolutely ruthless in its pursuit. There is no healing in the conventional sense, no medical intervention, no pharmaceutical relief. There are only choices, and most of them are terrible. The reality of medical care in the Ice Age is stark and unforgiving. There is none. No antiseptics, no antibiotics, no surgical instruments, no trained medical professionals, no hospitals, no emergency services. When something goes wrong with your body, and something will go wrong, you face the consequences with nothing but primitive remedies and raw willpower. The human body's capacity for self-repair becomes your only hope, and it's often not enough. Twist an ankle during a hunt or while fleeing from predators, and you instantly transform from a contributing group member into a liability that threatens everyone's survival. You slow the group's movement, reduce their hunting effectiveness, consume resources without providing adequate return, and attract predators with your weakened condition. In a world where mobility equals survival, any injury that affects your ability to move is potentially fatal, not just for you, but for anyone who depends on you or tries to help you. Break a bone, and the mathematics of survival become even more brutal. Without proper medical care, broken bones heal poorly or not at all. Improperly set fractures result in permanent disabilities that make you increasingly useless in survival situations. Compound fractures, where bone breaks through skin, create infection risks that can kill you slowly and painfully over days or weeks. Even simple fractures can become life-threatening if they prevent you from keeping up with the group or performing essential survival tasks. Bleed too much from any wound, and you trigger a cascade of problems that can destroy your chances of survival. Blood loss weakens you physically, making you less capable of defending yourself or contributing to group activities. But worse than the physical effects is the scent trail that fresh blood creates. The smell of human blood carries for miles in the thin, cold air of the Ice Age, attracting every predator in the region. You become a walking dinner invitation, advertising your vulnerability to creatures that specialize in identifying and exploiting weakness. Get an infection, and you face one of the most terrifying realities of pre-antibiotic existence. There is no cure, no treatment, no intervention that can stop the bacterial invasion of your body. No penicillin to kill the organisms that are literally eating you alive from the inside. No clean bandages to prevent contamination. No sterile techniques to minimize the risk of introducing new pathogens. Just rot, spreading through your system with inexorable determination, poisoning your blood and consuming your flesh while you remain conscious and aware of every stage of the process. The infection process in the Ice Age is particularly horrifying because of the lack of understanding about bacterial contamination and sterile technique. Wounds are cleaned with whatever water is available, often contaminated with animal waste, decomposing organic matter, or industrial runoff from natural processes. Bandages are made from whatever materials can be scavenged. Animal hides that may carry diseases, plant fibers that haven't been sterilized, cloth that's been contaminated through use and reuse. Neanderthals might care for their own archaeological evidence, suggests that some individuals with severe injuries and disabilities were supported by their groups for extended periods. But you are not their own, and you never will be. You're a temporary ally whose value is measured entirely in terms of immediate utility. If you can't move, hunt, gather, or contribute to group survival in meaningful ways, you become a drain on limited resources that threatens everyone's chances of survival. The calculation is coldly practical. Does keeping you alive improve or reduce the group's chances of survival? If you require constant care, consume food without contributing to food procurement, slow down movement when speed is essential, or attract predators with your weakness, the answer becomes obvious. They will not waste resources on someone who can't contribute to their survival. This abandonment isn't personal, isn't based on dislike or cruelty, isn't a reflection of moral failure. It's basic survival mathematics, applied with the ruthless logic that has kept these people alive for hundreds of thousands of years. Sentiment is a luxury that can kill everyone in the group. Compassion is an emotion that they can't afford when resources are limited and threats are constant. Make peace with this reality before you need to face it. Understand that if you become seriously ill or injured, you're on your own. No one is coming to rescue you. No medical team will stabilize your condition and transport you to safety. No friends or family will provide long-term care while you recover. You will heal on your own, adapt to your limitations, or die. Those are your only options. This knowledge should inform every decision you make, every risk you take, every action you consider. Is the potential benefit of a particular course of action worth the medical risks it entails? Can you afford to take chances that might result in injury when injury equals death? Do you have the skills and resources to treat yourself if something goes wrong? Carry sharp stone, not just for defense against external threats, but for mercy when pain becomes unbearable and survival becomes impossible. Sometimes the only thing you can control is how long the suffering lasts. Sometimes the kindest act you can perform for yourself or others is ending agony that has no hope of resolution. This isn't about giving up hope or embracing despair. It's about maintaining control over your own existence in a world where control is rare and precious. It's about making informed decisions about pain management when pain management consists entirely of endurance or termination. It's about retaining human dignity in circumstances that strip away most aspects of what we consider human. The psychological impact of constant pain can be as destructive as the physical effects. Chronic pain affects decision-making ability, reduces mental clarity, increases irritability and aggression, and creates depression that can sap the will to survive. In survival situations where mental toughness is often the difference between life and death, the psychological effects of pain can be fatal, even when the physical injuries aren't immediately life-threatening. Learn to distinguish between different types of pain and their implications for survival. Acute pain from fresh injuries requires immediate attention to prevent further damage or infection. Chronic pain from old injuries or ongoing conditions must be managed through mental discipline and adaptation techniques. Pain from internal problems, illness, infection, organ failure often indicates threats that can't be addressed through primitive medical techniques. Develop pain management strategies that don't depend on external resources. Meditation techniques that can help you dissociate from physical discomfort. Breathing exercises that can reduce the intensity of pain sensations. Mental focusing techniques that can help you function despite ongoing discomfort. Physical positioning strategies that can minimize the impact of specific injuries or conditions. Understand that pain tolerance is a skill that can be developed through practice and mental conditioning. People who survive extreme conditions often have the ability to function normally despite levels of pain that would incapacitate others. This isn't because they don't feel pain. It's because they've learned to compartmentalize pain, to function despite it, to make decisions based on survival priorities rather than comfort considerations. But also understand that there are limits to human pain tolerance, and exceeding those limits can result in shock, unconsciousness, or death. Pushing through pain is often necessary for survival, but pushing too hard can result in additional injuries, systemic damage, or complete physical collapse. The key is learning to calibrate your response to pain based on survival priorities and realistic assessments of your physical condition. In the Neanderthal era, pain is not something that happens to you. It's something that lives with you, hunts you, and ultimately defines much of your existence. Learning to coexist with pain, to function despite it, and to make rational decisions in its presence becomes one of the most essential survival skills you can develop. Because in a world where medical care doesn't exist, your relationship with pain determines not just your quality of life, but whether you have any life at all. Part 8. You are disposable and easily replaced. The harsh truth that modern humans struggle to accept is that individual human life has no inherent value in the Ice Age. You are not special, not irreplaceable, not entitled to protection or consideration simply by virtue of being human. Your worth is measured entirely in terms of your contribution to group survival, and that worth fluctuates constantly based on circumstances, resources, and the changing needs of the people you depend on for survival. Neanderthal bands are tight-knit social units forged by generations of shared survival, common genetics, and cultural traditions that predate recorded history. These bonds are not casual associations that can be easily expanded to include outsiders. They're survival partnerships based on absolute trust, proven competence, and genetic investment in shared offspring. You are the outsider, the stranger, whose loyalty is untested, whose competence is unproven, whose genetic investment in the group's future is non-existent. You are not family, and you never will be. Family in the Ice Age isn't just about blood relationships. It's about people who have demonstrated their commitment to shared survival through years of hardship, sacrifice, and mutual support. Family members have proven their willingness to risk their lives for each other, to share scarce resources during times of shortage, to provide care during illness or injury. You have proven nothing except your need for their protection and resources. The tolerance extended to you is based entirely on practical considerations. You are kept alive because you might be useful, not because you have any inherent right to life or protection. This usefulness is evaluated constantly, often without your knowledge, and the criteria for evaluation can change without warning based on circumstances beyond your control. What makes you valuable today might become irrelevant tomorrow. Skills that ensure your survival this season might be unnecessary next season. The second that balance changes, if you show fear at the wrong moment, develop an illness that reduces your productivity, demonstrate disobedience that challenges group hierarchy, or simply become less useful than the resources you consume, you transition from asset to liability. And liabilities in the Ice Age are eliminated with the same cold efficiency that characterizes all survival decisions. This elimination won't be preceded by discussions, warnings, or attempts at rehabilitation. Neanderthals don't waste time on lengthy deliberations about personnel problems. They don't conduct performance reviews or provide improvement plans. They solve problems with decisive action that prioritizes group survival over individual concerns. The decision to eliminate you will be made quickly, executed immediately, and implemented without remorse or second thoughts. They will not talk about it beforehand, because talking about it serves no useful purpose and might provide you with opportunities to escape or resist. There will be no warning, because warnings give potential threats time to become actual threats. No consultation with you about their decision, because your opinion is irrelevant to their survival calculations. Just a look exchanged between group members, a grunt that signals agreement, and a blow to the back of the skull delivered with enough force to ensure immediate unconsciousness and rapid death. Your body will not be wasted in a world where every calorie matters, where resources are perpetually scarce, where survival margins are razor thin. Nothing useful is discarded. Your flesh will feed the fire if fuel is needed, or feed the hunters if protein is scarce. Your bones will be fashioned into tools, your hide processed into clothing or shelter materials, your blood used to waterproof containers or preserve meat. This isn't betrayal in any meaningful sense of the word. Betrayal implies the violation of trust or commitment, but no such trust or commitment ever existed. You were never promised protection, never guaranteed safety, never offered permanent membership in their survival group. You were tolerated conditionally, and those conditions have now changed. What appears to be betrayal from your perspective is simply resource management from theirs. This is not cruel or evil, it's balance. It's the mathematical reality of survival in an environment where sentiment can kill everyone in the group. It's the practical application of principles that have kept these people alive for hundreds of thousands of years in conditions that would exterminate most modern human populations within weeks. Understanding this dynamic is essential for your survival, because it informs every interaction, every decision, every moment of your existence within their group. You are either a tool that enhances their survival capabilities, or a threat that reduces their chances of survival. There is no middle ground, no neutral position. no time out from this evaluation process. Stay valuable through consistent, reliable contribution to group survival. Anticipate needs before they become problems. Solve problems before they become crises. Contribute resources, skills, and labor without being asked. Demonstrate your usefulness daily through actions rather than words. Make yourself indispensable through competence, reliability, and productivity. But also stay alert to changes in your status within the group. Learn to read the subtle signs that indicate shifting attitudes toward your presence. Changes in how group members interact with you. Alterations in your access to resources or information. Modifications in your role during group activities. These changes often precede more dramatic shifts in your status and can provide warning of potential threats to your survival. Stay valuable, but never become threatening. This requires a delicate balance between demonstrating competence and avoiding any appearance of challenging established hierarchy. Be skilled, but not competitive. Be productive, but not ambitious. Be useful, but not indispensable, to the point where your independence might be seen as a threat to group cohesion. Understand that loyalty in this world is not an emotional bond. It's a practical arrangement, measured entirely in terms of mutual benefit. The loyalty they show you lasts exactly as long as you remain useful to them. The loyalty you show them must be absolute and unconditional, because anything less will be interpreted as potential threat and dealt with accordingly. Your survival depends on maintaining this precarious balance indefinitely. You can never relax your vigilance, never assume your position is secure, never take their tolerance for granted. Every day you survive is a day you've successfully navigated the complex social dynamics that determine whether you live or die. Every day you fail to contribute adequately is a day you move closer to elimination. The psychological strain of living under constant evaluation can be as dangerous as any physical threat. The knowledge that you're perpetually one mistake away from execution creates stress that can affect judgment, performance, and decision-making ability. Learning to function effectively despite this psychological pressure becomes another essential survival skill. But perhaps most importantly, understand that this disposability isn't a judgment on your worth as a human being. It's simply the reality of survival in a world where individual human life is subordinated to group survival. In modern society, we can afford the luxury of valuing individual human life for its own sake. In the Ice Age, that luxury doesn't exist. People survive as groups, or they don't survive at all. And groups survive by making hard decisions about individual members based on practical considerations rather than emotional attachments. Your challenge is to remain useful enough, valuable enough, and non-threatening enough to justify your continued existence within their survival framework. It's not about being liked or accepted. It's about being worth more alive than dead. And in the Neanderthal era, that calculation is performed fresh every single day. Part 9. The weather is alive, and it hates you. The weather in the Neanderthal era is not a forecast. It's an execution order written in ice and wind. This isn't the predictable climate, you know. This is a primordial force that moves like a living predator, stalking the landscape with deliberate cruelty. You need to understand what you're facing. This is the last glacial maximuma period, when glaciers stretch like frozen fingers across continents, locking up so much water that sea levels drop by hundreds of feet. The ice sheets tower miles high, their weight pressing down on the earth itself, grinding continents into submission. The temperature swings are violent and sudden. A warm day might reach freezing. A cold night plunges to -40. There is no gentle transition, no gradual change. Weather here shifts like the mood of a wounded animal, unpredictable, vicious, and often fatal. Storms don't announce themselves with satellite images or weather apps. They arrive like cavalry charges, sudden, overwhelming, and merciless. You'll feel them first as a change in air pressure that makes your ears pop and your teeth ache. Animals sense it before you do. Watch them. When birds go silent and mammals seek shelter, you have minutes, not hours. Blizzards here aren't just snow. They're walls of ice crystals moving at 60 miles per hour, turning the air itself into a weapon. The wind doesn't just blow. It screams through valleys with a sound like breaking bones. It can knock you off your feet, steal your breath mid-gasp, and bury you in minutes under drifts that compact like concrete. When a storm hits, you don't travel, you don't hunt, you don't even think about venturing outside. You huddle in whatever shelter you can find and wait for it to pass. The Neanderthals know this. Watch how they prepare, gathering extra firewood, stockpiling meat, checking every seam in their shelters. Copy them exactly. Ice forms on everything. Your breath crystallizes before it leaves your mouth. Your hair freezes to your skull. Your clothes become armor made of frost that cracks when you move. Learn to break the ice from your furs each morning, or it will cut your skin raw. But ice can save you too. It preserves meat indefinitely. It creates barriers against predators. It can be melted for water when rivers freeze solid. The key is understanding how to work with it rather than fight it. Recognize different types of ice. Clear ice is strong. You can walk on it, use it as a cutting surface, or melt it for drinking water. White ice is full of air bubbles and breaks easily. Blue-green ice means deep water underneath. Black ice is invisible death, a thin sheet over water that will crack the moment you step on it. Learn to read ice sounds. Groaning means it's shifting under pressure. Cracking means it's about to break. Silence means it's either completely solid or completely gone. Trust your ears more than your eyes. The wind is relentless. It doesn't gust. It inhabits the landscape like a malevolent spirit. It cuts through the heaviest furs and finds every gap in your clothing. Exposed skin dies in minutes. Your fingers go numb, then white, then black. Understand wind patterns. Cold air flows downhill like water, pooling in valleys and depressions. Avoid low ground during windstorms. Ridgelines catch the worst of it, but valleys can become wind tunnels that accelerate air to lethal speeds. Create windbreaks wherever you shelter. Stack rocks, pile snow, use fallen logs, anything to break the direct force of moving air. The Neanderthals are masters at this. They position camps in natural wind shadows, behind rock formations, or thick groves of evergreens. Your face is most vulnerable. Breathe through fur or hide to warm the air before it reaches your lungs. Cold air can freeze lung tissue from the inside. Cover your nose and mouth, but not your eyes. You need to see danger coming. Snow looks innocent. It's not. Each flake is a tiny ice crystal with edges sharp enough to cut. In large quantities, it becomes a living thing that shifts, drifts, and buries without warning. Learn to read snow conditions. Fresh snow is light and insulating, but treacherous to walk on. You'll sink to your waist with each step. Old snow is compact and supportive, but slippery. Wind-crusted snow has a hard surface that might support your weight or might collapse and trap you. Powder snow is deadly in large amounts. It flows like liquid, filling your nose and mouth if you fall face first. Wet snow is heavier and clings to everything, adding dangerous weight to trees and overhangs that might collapse. Snow depth determines movement. 6 inches slows you down. 12 inches makes walking difficult. 18 inches requires special technique. Lift your feet high, step carefully, use sticks for balance. Deeper than that, and you need snowshoes made from branches and sinew, or you don't travel at all. The snow-covered landscape hides lethal traps. Streams still flow under ice, creating pockets of frigid water that can swallow you whole. Tree wells, the deep snow around large trees, can trap you in loose powder where you sink beyond reach of help. Avalanche zones exist wherever there are slopes. Heavy snow builds up on mountainsides until something triggers its release. Your footstep, your voice, even your breathing. When it comes, it moves like a liquid wall of concrete, crushing everything in its path. Cliffs disappear under snow cover. You might walk off a 100-foot drop without seeing it coming. Use a stick to probe ahead of you in uncertain terrain. Test each step before committing your full weight. Overhanging snow, called cornices, forms on ridges and can break away without warning. They look solid, but are actually hanging over empty air, supported only by their own frozen structure. Step on one, and you plummet with tons of collapsing snow. The sky tells you everything, but you need to learn its language. Cloud types predict weather hours before it arrives. High, thin clouds, wispy and white, mean weather changes are coming within a day. Low, dark clouds mean immediate danger. When clouds move fast, storm systems are approaching. When they hang motionless, you might have stable weather for a few hours, but never trust apparent calm. In Ice Age conditions, weather can change completely in 20 minutes. Watch the horizon for the telltale signs. A darkening line that means approaching storm front. A wall of white that indicates heavy snow, or an ominous green tinge that suggests severe conditions ahead. The air itself gives warnings. High pressure makes the air crisp and clear but cold. Low pressure feels heavy and oppressive. Sudden pressure changes cause headaches and joint pain. Listen to your body's barometric predictions. Your shelter isn't just protection, it's your lifeline to the next day. Natural formations offer the best protection. Caves, rock overhangs, dense groves of evergreens. But most of the time, you'll have to create shelter from nothing. Dig into snow for insulation, but never sleep directly on ice or snow. It will drain your body heat faster than you can produce it. Create a barrier with pine boughs, animal hides, or even packed grass. Insulation below you is more important than covering above you. Build shelters, low and small. Heat rises, so low structures stay warmer. Small spaces heat up faster and retain warmth longer. You're not building for comfort. You're building to survive the night. Emergency shelters can be constructed in minutes if you know the techniques. A simple lean-to made from branches and covered with pine boughs can mean the difference between life and death. Snow caves, when properly built, can maintain temperatures 30 degrees warmer than outside air. Keeping fire alive in Ice Age weather requires obsession-level dedication. Wind will steal your flames. Snow will douse your embers. Cold will make your hands too numb to strike flint. Protect fire at all costs. Build windscreens from rocks or packed snow. Keep extra kindling dry by storing it inside your shelter, against your body if necessary. Never let a fire burn completely down. Maintain coals that can be quickly rekindled. In extreme conditions, fire becomes a group effort. Assign someone to tend it constantly. Collect fuel before you need it. Keep backup ignition materials, dry moss, birch bark, pine pitch, wrapped in waterproof materials like gut or hide. Learn to start fires in snow. Clear down to bare ground or create a platform of green wood. Snow will melt and quench flames, so build up before you build out. A small, sustainable fire beats a large one that dies. Travel during Ice Age weather isn't hiking, it's warfare against the elements. Every step must be calculated. Every mile costs energy you might not be able to replace. Move during the warmest part of the day, usually midday when the sun is highest. Start early enough to reach shelter before dark, but late enough that you're not fighting the coldest morning temperatures. Follow game trails when possible. Animals know the safest routes through treacherous terrain. Their paths avoid the worst wind exposure and the deepest snow. If it's good enough for a mammoth, it's good enough for you. Create emergency protocols. If someone falls through ice, you have seconds to respond. If visibility drops to 0, stop moving immediately. If anyone shows signs of hypothermia, confusion, stumbling, slurred speech, make shelter immediately. In the Neanderthal era, weather isn't background noise. It's the primary factor in every decision you make. When you eat, where you sleep, how far you travel, whether you hunt, all determined by atmospheric conditions beyond your control. You don't check the weather. You are the weather station. Your skin reads humidity. Your bones predict pressure changes. Your lungs gauge temperature. Every part of your body becomes an instrument for survival prediction. Seasonal patterns matter, but short-term changes kill. A warm day in winter might mean ice is weakening dangerously. A cold snap in spring could freeze early plants and starve the animals you depend on. Nothing is predictable except the fact that conditions will try to kill you. This is weather as an active enemy, conscious, deliberate, and patient. It waits for you to make mistakes. It tests your preparation constantly. It never forgives weakness. You don't defeat Ice Age weather. You negotiate with it, one day at a time, earning the right to see tomorrow by proving you deserve to survive today. The weather will teach you, but its lessons come with a body count. You'll learn to read storm signs, because those who don't die in blizzards. You'll master fire building, because those who don't freeze to death. You'll understand ice, because those who don't fall through and drown. This isn't climate you adapt to over generations. This is immediate, violent selection pressure that kills the unprepared in hours. The weather doesn't care about your potential or your intelligence. It cares about your preparation, your vigilance, and your respect for forces beyond human control. Every day you survive Ice Age, whether you prove something the modern world has forgotten. Humans are not separate from nature. We are subject to it, dependent on it, and ultimately judged by it. The weather in the Neanderthal era is alive, and it hates you. But if you learn its rules and respect its power, it might let you live another day. Part 10. Leave nothing behind. Migration isn't optional in the Neanderthal era. It's the difference between survival and extinction. Standing still is death. Resources deplete, seasons change, predators adapt, and competitors arrive. The landscape itself shifts as glaciers advance and retreat, reshaping valleys and redirecting rivers. If you want to live, you must become a creature of movement, carrying your entire world on your back. Forget the modern concept of home as a permanent structure, a fixed address, a place you return to each night. Home is what you carry. Home is the group that accepts you, the fire that warms you, the tools that keep you alive. Everything else is temporary geography. This nomadic existence isn't romantic wandering, it's calculated displacement driven by resource scarcity and environmental pressure. You move because staying means dying. Game herds migrate with the seasons, following food sources and favorable weather. If you don't follow the food disappears and you starve. Water sources freeze, dry up, or become contaminated. Shelter sites become compromised by predators who learn your patterns. Other human groups claim territory and defend it with lethal force. The land itself changes as rivers shift course and ice sheets advance. Nothing stays the same long enough to call it permanent. Migration timing separates successful groups from extinct ones. Leave too early and you abandon still useful resources. Leave too late and you travel in impossible conditions or arrive after the best opportunities are taken. Learn to read environmental cues that trigger movement. Neanderthals watch animal behavior obsessively. When caribou start gathering in large herds, migration season approaches. When birds begin flying in formations, they're following food sources you should follow too. When predators become scarce, it often means prey animals have already moved on. Weather patterns dictate migration schedules. You travel during favorable conditions, after storms pass, but before new ones arrive. Spring migration happens when ice begins to break up, but before flooding makes rivers impassable. Fall migration must be complete before heavy snows make travel impossible. Resource depletion provides clear signals when firewood becomes scarce near camp, when hunting requires traveling farther each day, when water sources start running low. These are nature's eviction notices. Smart groups recognize them early and plan accordingly. Everything you own must be portable. This isn't minimalism as lifestyle choice, it's survival necessity. Every item gets evaluated by a simple equation. Does its utility outweigh its weight and bulk? If not, it gets abandoned. Create a personal inventory that fits your carrying capacity. The average human can carry about 20% of their body weight for extended distances. Factor in the energy cost of movement. Heavier loads mean more calories burned, which means more food needed, which means more weight to carry. It's a calculation that can spiral into death. Prioritize items by survival importance. Fire-making materials come first. Flint, tinder, dry kindling. Cutting tools are essential. Napped stone blades, bone awls, anything sharp enough to process food and materials. Insulation is critical. The warmest, lightest furs and hides you can manage. Food presents special challenges. Fresh meat spoils quickly and attracts scavengers. Dried meat lasts longer, but requires time and fuel to prepare. Fat is calorie-dense and preserves well, but becomes rancid in warm weather. You need enough nutrition to sustain travel without carrying so much that the weight becomes prohibitive. Your migration kit is your life support system. Every item must serve multiple purposes. A sharp stone blade cuts meat, scrapes, hides, and serves as a weapon. Animal sinew binds, repairs, and creates snares. A hollowed gourd carries water, stores small items, and becomes a cooking vessel. Organize tools by accessibility, items you need quickly, fire-starting materials, cutting implements, emergency food, stay within immediate reach. Items used less frequently can be packed deeper but must remain securely attached to prevent loss during movement. Create redundancy for critical items. Carry multiple fire-starting methods in separate locations. If one gets wet or lost, you have backups. Duplicate cutting tools because a broken blade at the wrong moment can end your journey permanently. Essential medicines. If you know any plant remedies, get stored in multiple containers. Weight distribution determines travel endurance. Heavy items go close to your back and as low as possible to maintain balance. Sharp objects get secured so they won't cut you during movement. Fragile items need protection from impacts and weather. Waterproofing extends item lifespan dramatically. Wrap fire-starting materials in animal bladders or tree bark. Coat metal items with fat to prevent rust. Store clothing changes in waterproof containers because wet clothes in cold weather create hypothermia conditions. Group migration operates by strict hierarchies and protocols. Leaders make route decisions based on experience and environmental knowledge you don't possess. Follow their lead, absolutely, even when you disagree with their choices. Your modern perspective means nothing against their generational survival wisdom. Understand your position in the traveling order. Scouts range ahead, checking for dangers and identifying resources. Hunters protect the flanks and rear. Elders and children travel in the protected center. As an outsider, you'll likely be assigned a peripheral position, close enough to benefit from group protection, but far enough out to serve as an early warning system for threats. Maintain pace, discipline. Groups move at the speed of their slowest member, but they won't slow down for anyone who can't maintain minimum speed. If you fall behind, you get left behind. No exceptions. Build your endurance before migration season, because there's no opportunity to rest and recover once movement begins. Share the burden of group equipment. Everyone carries something beyond their personal items, communal tools, extra food, injured members' belongings. This isn't charity, it's survival insurance. Today you help carry someone else's load. Tomorrow they might carry yours. Finding direction without compass or GPS requires constant environmental awareness. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west, but its exact position changes with seasons. Stars provide consistent reference points, but you need to know their patterns and seasonal movements. Natural navigation uses landscape features as guideposts. Mountain ranges, river valleys, and distinctive rock formations become waypoints on mental maps passed down through generations. Neanderthals know these landmarks intimately and can navigate by them even in limited visibility. Animal tracks and trails indicate direction and destination. Game paths lead to water sources, feeding areas, and seasonal migration routes. Following established animal highways is often safer and more efficient than breaking new trail through unknown terrain. Weather patterns provide directional cues. Prevailing winds come from consistent directions in most regions. Snow accumulation patterns on rocks and trees indicate wind direction and intensity. Cloud movements show air current patterns that remain relatively stable across seasons. Plant growth patterns reveal environmental conditions. Moss typically grows on the north side of trees in northern latitudes because that side receives less direct sunlight and stays moisture. Vegetation density and types change with elevation and moisture availability, creating natural zone markers. Arriving at a new location requires immediate threat assessment. Other human groups might already claim this territory. Large predators could have established hunting grounds here. Environmental hazards, unstable ground, contaminated water, poisonous plants need identification before settlement. Scouts systematically, before committing to a location, check water sources for clarity, flow rate, and accessibility. Identify potential shelter sites that offer protection from weather and predators. Locate food sources, game trails, gathering areas, fishing spots. Map escape routes in case quick departure becomes necessary. Establish defensive positions immediately. Choose camp locations that limit approach angles for potential attackers. Create barriers from natural materials to slow down threats. Position sentries to watch key access points. Plan signals for different types of danger. Mark territory boundaries using scent and visual indicators that communicate your presence to other groups. This prevents accidental territorial conflicts while warning potential competitors that this area is occupied and defended. Water becomes the limiting factor in most migrations. You can survive weeks without food, but only days without water. Plan routes around reliable water sources, but never assume they'll be available when you arrive. Carry emergency water supplies and know purification methods for questionable sources. Fuel for fires must be gathered continuously during travel. Don't wait until you make camp to collect firewood. Gather dry materials whenever you find them and carry what you can. Wet wood burns poorly and produces dangerous amounts of smoke that attract predators and rival groups. Food procurement during migration requires different strategies than stationary hunting. You can't wait for perfect hunting opportunities or spend days tracking individual animals. Focus on quick kills, small game, and gathering whatever edible materials you encounter along the route. Tool maintenance becomes critical when you can't replace broken equipment easily. Sharpen blades regularly to maintain effectiveness. Repair gear before it fails completely. Improvise replacements using available materials when necessary. Constant migration creates psychological stresses unknown to settled peoples. Uncertainty becomes your default mental state. You never know what tomorrow's landscape will bring, what dangers lurk ahead, or whether the next water source actually exists. Mental resilience develops through necessity. You learn to make critical decisions with incomplete information. You adapt to changing conditions without the luxury of extensive planning. You accept loss of places, possessions, and people as inevitable parts of the mobile lifestyle. Physical endurance requirements exceed modern understanding of human capability. Daily travel of 15 to 20 miles over rough terrain while carrying heavy loads becomes routine. Your body adapts or breaks down. There's no middle ground. Social dynamics intensify under migration stress. Group cohesion becomes essential for survival, but close proximity and shared hardships create conflicts. Leadership challenges arise when decisions mean life or death for everyone. Personal grudges become group-threatening problems. Spring migrations follow melting ice and emerging vegetation. You move from winter shelters toward areas where plant foods become available and prey animals gather for breeding. Timing is critical. Arrive too early and resources aren't ready. Arrive too late and other groups have claimed the best locations. Summer movements track game herds and water availability. Hot weather changes animal behavior and water sources. You might need to move to higher elevations for cooler temperatures, or follow rivers and lakes that don't dry up during drought periods. Fall migrations are survival preparations for winter. You move toward areas with natural windbreaks, reliable water sources that won't freeze completely, and sufficient game populations to sustain hunting through lean months. This is often the longest and most dangerous migration of the year. Winter movements are emergency relocations. Severe weather, depleted resources, or predator pressure can force movement during the most difficult travel conditions. Winter migrations have high mortality rates and should be avoided unless staying means certain death. Sometimes you must leave immediately with no time for preparation. Predator attacks, hostile human encounters, natural disasters, or rapidly changing weather can force instant departure from seemingly secure locations. Keep essential survival items ready for immediate grab-and-go situations. A small emergency kit containing fire-starting materials, basic tools, and emergency food should be within arm's reach at all times. This kit represents the minimum necessary to survive until you can recover or replace your full equipment set. Establish group signals for emergency departures. Different situations require different responses. Stealth withdrawal versus rapid evacuation versus defensive fighting retreat. Everyone must know these signals and practice the appropriate responses. Plan multiple escape routes from any location. Primary routes offer the fastest, safest departure. Secondary routes provide alternatives if primary paths become blocked or compromised. Emergency routes might be dangerous, but remain accessible when all other options fail. The most valuable thing you carry isn't physical, it's knowledge. Skills, experience, and information weigh nothing, but can save your life repeatedly. Learn continuously from every situation, every landscape, every group member. Memorize landmarks, water sources, game patterns, weather signs, and danger indicators for every area you travel through. This mental map becomes more valuable than any physical possession because it can't be lost, stolen, or broken. Develop versatile skills that apply in multiple situations. Fire-making works everywhere. Tracking techniques transfer between different prey animals. Shelter-building principles adapt to various materials and conditions. Medicine knowledge helps regardless of specific plants available. Share knowledge strategically. Teaching useful skills to group members increases your value and ensures techniques survive if something happens to you. But don't reveal everything. Maintaining exclusive knowledge of certain critical skills can be your insurance policy. Living in perpetual migration changes you fundamentally. You develop heightened environmental awareness that becomes instinctive. You learn to read landscapes like books, extracting survival information from subtle cues that settled people never notice. Your relationship with possessions transforms completely. Nothing has sentimental value, only utility value. You don't collect or accumulate. You evaluate everything by its contribution to immediate survival needs. Time perception shifts from calendar-based to condition-based. You don't think in terms of dates or schedules, but in terms of weather patterns, resource availability, and seasonal changes. Your planning horizon extends only as far as your next migration. Risk assessment becomes automatic and continuous. Every step gets evaluated for potential dangers. Every resource gets assessed for current and future utility. Every decision gets filtered through survival probability calculations. Perpetual migration exacts costs that settled life never demands. Physical wear accumulates faster when your body never gets extended rest periods. Injuries heal poorly when you can't stop moving long enough for proper recovery. Social connections remain shallow because groups split and merge constantly. Deep relationships become liabilities when separation is inevitable. You learn to form functional partnerships quickly, but avoid emotional attachments that create vulnerability. Knowledge loss accelerates when groups disperse. Skills and information die with individuals because there's no permanent community to preserve and pass them on. Each generation must relearn survival techniques that previous generations already mastered. But these costs are the price of survival in a world that kills those who stand still. Migration isn't optimal, it's necessary. It's the difference between adaptation and extinction. In the Neanderthal era, migration never truly ends. Even when you stop moving temporarily, you're planning the next departure. Resources are always temporary. Safety is always provisional. Staying means dying. Eventually, you become a creature of horizons, always looking toward the next ridge, the next valley, the next season. Home becomes wherever you can light a fire and survive the night. Permanence becomes whatever you can carry on your back. This is existence reduced to its essential elements: movement, adaptation, and survival. No security beyond your own capabilities. No possessions beyond immediate necessities. No future beyond the next migration. You leave nothing behind because everything you abandon might be the thing that saves your life tomorrow. You carry everything because stopping to gather what you need later might mean arriving too late. This is how humans lived for hundreds of thousands of years, not as settlers or builders, but as nomads, carrying their entire civilization in portable packages, moving across landscapes that changed faster than adaptation could keep pace. You are not traveling towards something. You are traveling away from death, one step at a time, one migration at a time, one survival decision at a time. The journey never ends. It only pauses between movements, gathering strength for the next departure into the unknown.